next group, which are the pros and cons of firearms. We'll actually start with the cons, so please give them a big hand.
When the Chinese invented gunpowder, their intention was not to provide a way of self-defense or to use to fight in wars or hunt wildlife. Their intention was actually to make a potion of immortality. But firearms have had the complete opposite effect on our society. Firearms are in the top 10 causes of death in the United States. Hi, I'm Sarah Coates, and with the help of Matthew and Marley, we will be discussing the types of death caused by firearms, including suicide, death of animals from hunting, and accidental or crime-related killings of children.
Over the course of hundreds of years, guns have evolved in ways similar to the scientific belief of organic evolution. Guns have gone faster, stronger, more mobile, and more accurate from its origin in the cannon. Its mobility in the hand cannon, its accuracy in the musket, its speed in the revolver, and its power has improved all throughout. With these advances have come consequences, such as being lead causes in suicide, child death, and animal extinction.
On January 4th, 2013, Melinda Herman was at home with her 2 children when she saw a strange man trying to enter her home. She panicked and called her husband because she didn't know what to do. He said, "Take the 2 children, take your .38 caliber handgun, and get to the crawl space." And his last step was, if the invader enters the room, shoot him. So after a stressful few minutes of waiting for the invader, he opened the crawl space door and Mrs. Herman shot him in the face 5 times. He managed to flee the scene, but later crashed into a tree on the neighboring property. Mrs. Herman is regarded as a hero in the pro-gun law debate because she protected her children with the use of a handgun.
Throughout the world and U.S. history, firearms have played a major role in our nation's military. They have been greatly improved over the years, and today the United States has one of the strongest militaries in the world. With new firearm technologies, a single person can take out their enemies from over a mile away without being seen or heard. The United States today has a military budget of about $600 billion going towards our defense systems and militaries. The U.S. government gives about 30% of this budget to build and develop weapons or firearms that support our defense systems.
Every 40 seconds, someone in the world dies by suicide. Every 41 seconds, someone is left to make sense of it. Suicide is the leading cause of death associated with firearms, and more suicides are committed each year with firearms than all other methods of suicide combined. The reason firearms are so commonly used in suicide is their ability to provide an immediate death. Other forms of suicide, such as hanging or drug overdose, are more likely to be suicide attempts rather than resulting in a death. In fact, 85% of suicide attempts with firearms result in death, while less than 3% of drug overdose attempts result in death. Another reason firearms are so commonly used in suicide is that they enable people to act on impulse. Gun owners are more likely to commit suicide than non-gun owners because they have easy access to a suicide weapon. Other forms of suicide require prior planning, which gives time for reconsideration. But if a person who has easy access to guns gets sudden thoughts of wanting to end their life, they will act on that impulse. Whereas usually, once given time, those thoughts subside. But once the trigger is pulled, there's no going back.
On December 15, 1791, the Second Amendment of the Constitution was adopted. This amendment states that all citizens in the United States have the right to bear arms and that that right shall not be infringed. Firearms is a big controversial issue in the United States because a lot of people think that you don't need to protect yourselves and that you should just have faith in your country. Well, in order to have faith in our country, we need to be able to protect ourselves, and that includes guns, like protecting ourselves in the military and such. Yeah. Here.
In the past 200 years, there have been nearly 600 extinctions and endangerments combined of known species due to animals. If those are known species, then you can imagine all the undocumented species as well. In Africa, the massive extinctions are there. But there have been extinctions in America as well. In North America, the passenger pigeon lived, but in colonial times, they were hunted out and brought to extinction. Off the west coast in the Pacific Ocean, the sea crab once dwelled. It was a close relative to the manatee, and it was hunted for its blubber and milk and was brought to extinction. And to common belief, the dodo bird had died, but they were finally brought to extinction by non-native hunters using muskets. Those are 3 examples, but they're examples close to home.
The last pro of firearms is recreation. More than 38 million Americans hunt, and more than 228 million days each year are spent hunting. There are also 2 sports in each Olympics that use firearms, such as skeet shooting and the biathlon in the Winter Olympics. As you can see here, the children can use firearms safely and easily as long as taught how. This can lead to protection and they can further themselves in the military if ever wanted to do so.
Did you know when a child is born, the same amount of pressure that it takes for it to hold your finger is the same amount of pressure that it takes for you to pull the trigger of a gun? Over 18,000 young children up to the age of 19 were killed or injured by a firearm in 2010. This is 3 times as many U.S. soldiers who were injured in Afghanistan and double the amount of children who died here. There's 2 types of gun killings to children, which is either accidental or crime-related. Most often, they are caused by the lack of knowledge that children have when it comes to the harmful inquisitions of guns. There are many things that we can do to stop the killing of our own children with guns, but if we increased our education with children and increased the gun control that we have, it would be easily stopped.
There are many pros and cons to having guns in the United States, and there are mostly pros. We need guns in the United States for war, for recreation, and to protect ourselves. The United States is a democracy, and we should have the choice whether to have the reassuring feeling to protect ourselves, use it in military or recreation.
Something that was made to save lives and create immortality kills over 33,000 people a year, millions of animals, and is an easy way for children to commit suicide. And if we stopped the use of guns in America, if you put a gun in the hand of men, and even the most responsible person, it can be fatal to you, someone you love, or some stranger that you haven't even met, and it needs to stop.
And for the cons, in countries where there's more strict gun control, do you have any statistics on either deaths or suicide rates there?
Well, I know that like in countries like in Islamic countries and things, children's teachers are required to carry guns, and there are less shootings there, children, things like that. But I don't have any on suicide.